Hello, welcome to Larter Oasis, a 10-acre smallholding in the east of England.
10 acres that is slowly being rewilded and will eventually be left to a local wildlife trust, providing a home for nature and wildlife in perpetuity. When we bought this plot many years ago, it was all or mostly agricultural arable land. We planted grass seed about 25 years ago on just about all of it, various species, and it's now classed as permanent grassland. In a willow, yes it is. In 2018, our oldest Suffolk at the time, Jock, passed at the age of 22. We left us with four horses, not three, Willow and 3 Shetlands, Kobe, but also Domingo and Litland. Over the course of the next 2 years, we lost Litland and Domingo reaching a ripe old age. So that left us with 2, Willow and Kobe. And because of that, we thought, well, we don't really need this paddock. So we thought we'd turn this over back to wildlife, so we'd rewild it. And to start the process, we put in this oak tree. That really commemorates where Jock fell. This is where he had his last breath, bless him. He's a lovely horse, a bit anxious, but a lovely old chap. In fact, this meadow is named after Jock. It's called Jock's Low Veld. Veld means uncultivated ground or grassland in Afrikaans. But that got us thinking we can start to put in some other trees. But for 2 years, before we did that, for 2 years, we just let the grass grow, let any flowers come through, and also let the broadleaf weeds get on with it. That's the dock, thistles and nettles. Whilst you don't really want them in a paddock where you're using for grazing for horses, because it's not going to be grazed anymore, it's going to be for wildlife. Letting those broadleaves carry on and just get on with it means they would go to seed, and a lot of birds, wild birds, would love to have that seed, yellowhammers, linnets and so on. So we've let that go for a few years, and then 2 years ago we decided to add a bit more to this paddock and put in some trees. So we put in, I think it was about just under 200, about 180, 190 trees. And we were advised by the Wildlife Trust that we're going to be leaving this plot to plant them in clumps, not in one big area in regimented lines, but in small clumps, which is what we've done. I'll put the planting plan up on the screen now. On there you can be able to see that there are 9 clumps that we planted, and all the different species of trees. We put in many different species such as oak and ash and elm and beech and wild service tree, holly, various willows and so on. You can see the list there. It's quite extensive. There's a good list of different tree species that we put in. Putting them in clumps also means that there is spaces between these clumps, which I would call small rides. And wildlife, there's always more wildlife on the outside of a wooded area rather than in the middle. So having these lots of rides and these clumps of trees means it's going to be more beneficial to wildlife as time goes on. The trees we planted a couple of years ago, half were bought in from a supplier of native stock, and the other half we grew from seed over a period of a few years. We put them in and they've done well. There are some casualties. We expected some casualties. That could be just some don't take, but there's also animal damage, rabbits, hares, muntjac deer especially, and roe deer. But we knew that was going to happen, and we don't want to work against them. We enjoy having the animals here and seeing the wildlife, so you just have to work with it. And the way we do that is twofold. We put in more than we thought we'd actually need in each clump, so if there's some casualties, no, not too big a deal. But also at the same time, we grew some more from seed at home, knowing that in a couple of years' time, they'd be ready to plant out. So should we have damaged trees, we can actually go ahead and replace them with the ones we were growing and nurturing at home. As you can see, this one has been totally trashed, and I would say it was a roe deer. By looking at the height from the ground, that's got to be roe, not muntjac. He's been rubbing his antlers, and it goes all the way around the trunk of this young silver birch. So I'll put another silver birch nearby. Once I've got damage to these trees and I think they could be casualties or they could be dead, I tend to leave them in place for a year or two. In my experience, sometimes they'll come back, not necessarily from any branches up above the ground, but sometimes new shoots from the ground will take if the roots are okay. So what I'll do is I tend to leave them for a year or two, even if I think they may be gone, and if that's still the case, there's no sign of life, I will then take up the cane and I'll take up the protector, and then use them on another tree where I plant somewhere else. More damage. I'm not sure if this is a rowan or monkjack, but it's definitely a deer. Perfectly good tree. Otherwise, it might come back. You never know. The scraping is not all the way around the trunk. These are the replacements that I'm going to be putting in to this small meadow over the course of the next 2 or 3 days. Probably do a few after each poo pick in the morning. But at the back, to the left, there's a clump of ash. Right in front, that's the rowan, and over to the right at the back, that's silver birch. And then I have some canes and some protectors, some pruning shears, or whatever you want to call them, they're little pruners, and a spade. And that spade is what I would call a ditch spade. It narrows towards the bottom, makes it easier to get in there and dig some holes. So that's everything there I need. It just remains for me to get on with it and start digging some holes, really. All I do is to dig a hole just a little bit bigger than the size of the pot, empty or put the tree into the hole, put in the cane, prune any plant or any branches or twigs I think I might get in the way of the protector, and then put the protector on. So it's fairly straightforward, as easy as that, really. Just get on with it, shall we say. It's heavy old clay soil and full of flints in places, but the ditch spade does make the job a bit easier because there's no fertilizers or pesticides or anything of that nature put on here. There's always plenty of juicy worms, lots of worms all over the place. Another one here, fantastic. There we have it, and just firm it in with a foot. Cover the worms up. If you want them robin or blackbird, you have to work for it. Right, just put the cane in and then put the protector on. It should be alright. Don't need to cut anything there. There you have it. One planted replacement. That's an ash. You'll tell an ash when it's got no leaves on. The buds at the top are normally black, quite dark. You can see that there. Very dark. Time to do a few more. Oh, clay. Soil can be sticky to work with, but the good thing about it in summer, even if you get a drought, the clay soil tends to hold a lot of the moisture, so it's very rare do we get a total drought on the grassland here and where it's just all burnt and nothing there. Normally there's always something a little there for the horses to have a go at, even in the longest of droughts. So it has its ups and its downs. This time of year it's downs. It's sticky, it's wet, it's slippery, pull the muscles all the time. Looking forward to the summer. That's a good sign.
It's sitting right on the edge. I'm in the bedroom and I just have to look out the window and there it is sitting there.
Marvellous. Hopefully, fingers crossed, it might pay off. That was Sharon just telling us that there's a kestrel sitting in the tree of heaven that we have in our front drive, and that's very close, not far from where we put a kestrel box on an eave of the house. About 2-3 years ago now, And it's good news that a kestrel is female as well, because I've seen it a few times when I've been walking back with the wheelbarrow and walked back home. It's been in the ash actually, just in front of the drive. So it's nice that it's hanging around. It would be lovely if I actually used the box. To date, stock doves have used it, but stock doves use everything. There's no complaints, but it would be nice to see a pair of kestrels in there. It's February, very beginning of February, and this is a good time to plant trees. Any time really from, I guess, middle end of November all the way through to the end of February. The trees are dormant, they're asleep, so it's a good time if you want to do anything, is to do it now while they're not really aware of what's going on. So I always use any time between normally December and January for planting trees. I'm a bit late this year, but it's still only the beginning of February, so I'm still quite happy to put them in. Give it a few more days and they'll all be done. The other thing to say is I've been using some of these old brown spiral protectors. I used these, and these are 25 years old. I actually used these when we planted, Sharon and I planted the hedgerow as a border hedgerow all the way down the line there. I can't remember how many, there's a few thousand plants in there, but we used them when we put those in 25 years ago, and the hedge is doing quite well. These are the ones left over. I wouldn't say they're as good as new, but they're good. And I haven't had any problems with them putting them on the trees just now, so I shall carry on using the ones that I have for the remainder, and we'll just see how we go. But yeah, they lasted 25 years. You don't buy many things that last 25 years nowadays. If you get 25 months, you're lucky. When we first planted the young trees in this paddock 2 years ago, we did spray off about 1 metre all round them so they wouldn't be competing with a thick network of grasses. It was a weak solution and it checked back the grass only for a small period. By the end of spring, the grass had grown back. We never apply any fertiliser. We read an article in one of the smallholder magazines many years ago where it said no fertiliser encouraged the plant to produce a stronger root system. Here is Jock with the border hedgerow whips behind him. Here is the same border hedgerow 24 years on in winter. Here it is in summer, looking good without any fertiliser. As time goes by, when there is no livestock here on the plot, and if I'm still around or if Sharon's still around, it is our intention to have probably a 3-acre meadow in the middle of Larter Oasis, being surrounded by clumps of woodlands and glades and rides. And that would be a nice mix. That'd be a good habitat, a varied habitats for wildlife. Well, that's the last of the replacement trees put in. Probably put in another 10 or 15 next year, but then that will be jobbed for this meadow. And it's just a matter of letting the young trees do what young trees do well. Hopefully grow.
Thanks for watching.
Take care.
Bye for now.
Bye.